Hi, I'm Melissa Lakey, an artist and illustrator living in Joshua Tree, California. I love to create colorful illustrations and artwork that's inspired by the landscape here where I live and the trips I take. I also love exploring and drawing in new locations, experimenting with art materials, and also collecting sketchbooks. I love taking a sketchbook along with me on trips. It's such a fun way to record memories of my travels, as well as a way to slow down and spend time in a new place, seeing things I might not have otherwise noticed. By the end of the class, you'll be ready to fill your next sketchbook with fun and colorful illustrations of your travels.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from all across the globe. You guys are pretty active, as I said in the chat. If you can hear us, just to double check if you can hear us and see us okay, please type llama in the chat. Let us know where you're viewing from. How is it there? Must be really sunny for some. Hello from Amsterdam. Ottawa. We've got people from all across the globe. John is first to comment from Canada, from USA, Ohio, Naples. All right, New York. I see some familiar names. Hello from Florida. Okay, Llama. I'm from California. Hi, Ivory. All right. Where are you from, Melissa?
I'm also from California. I live out in Joshua Tree in the desert.
Wow, awesome. All right, so I think you guys are good. Hello, Llama from West Virginia. Hi, Sandra. Lots of people answering. Okay, I think we can begin then. So, hello again, everybody. My name is Kathleen. I'm with Etcher, your studio host for today. And for those who are new with Etcher, we are an art learning platform who works with art teachers from all across the globe. And today's free demo is brought to you by a lovely teacher from California, Melissa Lakey, and this works as a preview for her 90-minute class, which she'll be talking about shortly. I'll just drop the link for anyone who's curious to check that out. And by watching her content, you are very much supporting Melissa to what she does, so you might want to consider having a look at that. So just a few reminders before we begin. If you have any questions, just type them in all capital letters, just like this. And if you're going to be following along today, keep an eye in the chat. I'll be dropping links to reference photos. And also, we have a private Facebook group open to anyone making art related to both our free content and paid classes. So I'll be dropping that link in the chat and flashing that on the screen. And with that said, Melissa, can you let us know what you'll be doing today and how that connects to your Etcher class?
Yeah, definitely. So, as I mentioned in the intro, I love taking sketchbooks along with me on trips and just drawing on them while I'm out on location. Also, sometimes at the end of the day from photos, or even after the trip from some photos I took on the trip. So, today we'll be drawing one of the photos I took when I was in Prague a few years ago. And then in the mini workshop, we'll be expanding on that and creating a whole sketchbook spread of a bunch of different illustrations on the same page. So this is what we'll be doing today. The main image on the bottom with the buildings is what we'll be working on. And then this is the one that we'll be doing in the mini workshop, where we'll create a bunch of illustrations together on the same page. Here's a couple examples of some of the other illustrations I've done from trips. This is also Prague. I just love all the fun buildings that they have there. And this one is from the town where I grew up. I went back one day and was just drawing cabins in the snow. And before we get started, I just want to show you the colors I'm going to use today and the materials. This is an Ecoline marker. It's a watercolor marker. You can add water to blend it, or you can also use another marker to blend with it. As you can see there. I like these water-based markers a lot. I use two brands. I use these, the Ecolines, and I also like to use the Tombow markers. These ones are also water-based. Tombow does do an alcohol-based marker that looks very similar, but I don't like those as much. So here you can see again how you can kind of blend and layer them. And I usually always start with markers as my first layer when I'm out on location. And here I'm just kind of picking out the palette of the colors that I'm going to use for today's illustration. And this is the example of a palette I would probably take with me on a trip like this. So maybe like 4 or 5 markers, and then a few colored pencils, One pencil I really like is the Luminance Payne's Gray pencil. It's close to black without being black, um, and it's pretty much one of my favorite pencils. I also like this olive brown. You can turn your pencil and use it on the side like this to get more texture. And then the other material we'll be using today are these Neocolor crayons, which can draw right on top of the marker or over colored pencil. I'll just use a couple of those. This one, the Flame Red and Sky Blue. So that's the palette I'm going to be using. And here you can see I've already filled in these top boxes. And when we do the mini workshop, we'll do the whole page with a bunch of different illustrations. I like to tape off the boxes with tape sometimes because then you can draw right up to the edges. And then when you pull the tape off, you get like a nice clean edge, which is a great look. But there's a few other ways to do this, even if you don't have tape with you. We'll talk more about that too in the mini workshop. So I've just jumped into drawing here. I pretty much never do a sketch to start out with. I just start right in. You might not be comfortable with that. You might want to start with a sketch, and that's fine too. I just like to get going. If I'm drawing on location, I want to just draw quickly because I've got other places to be or things are changing. So I'll
Yeah.
just jump right in. Oh, did you have something to say?
Oh, no, I was agreeing, just saying yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Um, and then the other thing I like about drawing without doing kind of a refined sketch underneath is I kind of enjoy having very wonky drawings. Like my buildings might be kind of crooked and have the wrong number of windows. Like I'm not very concerned with it being super accurate to my reference, whether I'm drawing from a photo or on location. I just sort of enjoy the process. So I encourage you to do that too if you're drawing along. Don't worry about it being perfect. Don't worry about if it doesn't come out how you're expecting. Like part of drawing while on a trip is just enjoying the place that you're in, or if you're drawing a photo of a trip you've already taken, just remembering that place and how it made you feel and just enjoying the drawing. The place we're drawing today is, I think it's Old Town Square in Prague. And you can see in the photo reference, it's a bit more zoomed out and you can see the people on the street. And if I was going to spend more time on this, maybe I would include the people. I think I'd want the focus to be on the buildings still. So I'd maybe draw the buildings like this and then draw the people over just as outlines with my gray pencil. But to keep things simple, I think today I'll kind of like be zoomed in and just focus right on these buildings. 'Cause I just love the colors that they are and the kind of cool shapes that they are. And that's something also we'll want to talk about more is when you're looking at a scene, you don't have to draw exactly what you see. You can edit things out, you can move things around. And if you're working with a limited palette like this, you'll have to change the color. So you're not going to exactly do the right color of every exact thing so it matches in real life. It's more about capturing the feeling of a place than like totally accurately capturing it. So that's why I've chosen this palette today is I feel like it's for the mood of this photo, I feel like it's sunny, it's happy, it feels vacationy, and I think these colors reflect that. And then the
Yeah.
way that I picked them is one of my favorite tips for picking a limited palette is these are just pretty much my favorite colors. And that's a good way to get started. If you're wanting to start with a limited palette and not sure how, just pick out a few of your very favorite colors and just go with those because you'll always feel happy drawing with those. And whatever's in the scene, you can change that to the colors that you have. And in the mini workshop, we'll talk more about picking out palettes because this method of just favorite colors doesn't always work. Like later this summer, I'm going to be in the Rocky Mountains and I know everything is just going to be really beautiful and green. So I think I'll try to take a palette with a few more greens in it because I could change and just draw pink and purple and orange trees, but I think that won't capture the feeling of the place as well. So that's something to think about when you're going on a trip is what types of things you might be drawing. So here you can see I'm using the white of the paper as another color as well. You'll see this more as I go through, but around the buildings where there's some white parts, I'm trying to just leave that as the white of the paper and draw around that. And I just like to kind of work across the whole page with my markers and get that color laid in, and then I'll start working more on the different details that I want to add. And I'm just looking at the photo, looking back at my drawing, sort of choosing what to draw. Some things didn't work out quite right, so I'm making adjustments for that, and that's just kind of how I do it. And when you're working in a limited palette, you want to try to make sure your colors, they don't have to be like evenly spread, but often you'll want the colors to kind of be across the page. So like I've put this kind of purpley blue in a few places, and I'm working the orange across. And then if you can see in the illustrations I've already drawn up above, I've also tried to like have a good mix of those colors across the spread, and that kind of brings it together. And that's another nice thing about working in a limited palette is that it makes things go together and feel more cohesive. So even if your drawing's a bit funky and wonky, it has a cool feeling to it. So now that I've got the marker layer in, I'm going to start going in and adding some details with my colored pencil. This is the Payne's Gray pencil. I found this pencil from one of my favorite illustrators, which is Emma Carlisle. If you don't know her, she does amazing, fun sketchbook stuff. You should absolutely check her out. She does really cool stuff. She's a big inspiration to me and is where I found out a lot of the materials and techniques that I love to use. So I definitely recommend that if you want to find some inspiration. Her name is Emma Carlisle. And it's
That
also
with
just,
a
it's a
yeah,
Emma
is that with a K or a C?
with a C.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I'll be typing that in the chat for everyone.
It's Emma, and then Carlisle is Carlisle. She's got an Instagram account. So it is nice to follow artists that you really are excited by.
Yeah, that's what Instagram is for. It's kind of like your feed of whole things that you totally love.
Yeah, when I'm getting ready for a trip, sometimes I'll make even just like a Pinterest board of inspiration of drawings of that place to kind of get me in the mood and help me decide what colors I might want to bring or what techniques I might want to try out. Plus, it's just fun to do that. So here's this first building I filled in the windows, and I'm going to bring this Neocolor crayon in. I always try to do these as the last part of my illustration, these crayons, because they can draw over marker, they can draw over colored pencil, but not many things can draw over them. So they kind of have to be the last step. And you can sharpen them. This one is not sharpened, so it's a little harder to make these little lines, but that is something nice about them that's different than like an oil pastel, is that you can sharpen them and get a point on them. And also with the Neocolors, like the markers that I'm using, they're water soluble. If you buy, there's two kinds, there's the Neocolor 1 and the Neocolor 2. But if you buy the Neocolor 2, which are the ones I like, they are water soluble, so you can use them with water, or with your pens, you can kind of blend them as well. Just make sure to clean your pen tip afterwards because it could dry on there. I won't be doing that today, but it is kind of a fun technique, especially if you're using a sketchbook with a heavier paper, like the Etcher sketchbook, which I'm using, because they can take more water and without crinkling, so you can kind of get a watercolor effect without having to take a whole watercolor set with you when you're drawing on location. You can just take a water brush, which is a brush you can just fill with water, and then use it to blend things. And speaking of mistakes, you can see I should have had 4 windows there, and I just have 3 windows. But those kind of things, I don't worry about them. I just keep going. Let's see. Did you have any questions before I move on?
Yeah, we were just confirming what kind of pencil, which I've responded already.
Mhm.
And somebody was telling about the colors. Love the colors. Speaking of colors, do you usually alter the colors plain air during plain air, or based on the vibe or what mood you want it to be?
Yeah, I think I most of the time don't draw things exactly how they are. I'll just draw kind of however I want them to be. And
Yeah.
it sometimes it just depends what things I brought with me. Like this would be a very, very limited palette, just like 5 pens and a couple pencils and a couple crayons. I usually have a few more things with me, but this amount is a really nice amount because it's very light to carry around. Does that kind of
Awesome.
answer the question?
Yeah. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you do have any more questions, just feel free to type them in the chat. We'll either answer them real time, or we can reserve that for our Q&A. So if you have some questions for Melissa, feel don't be shy. Just go ahead and drop them in a chat.
Yeah. Any questions you guys have? And you don't have to use these materials. There's so many different things you could take out travel sketching with you. You can keep it really simple. If you're unsure about picking out colors, you can also take just like one or two colors, like one color marker and one colored color pencil, and see how that goes, and just build it up from there. And if you don't have markers, you can definitely use watercolors in this exact same way. You just have to wait a little longer for them to dry. So that's the only disadvantage. And you just need a little more space, I think, to work with watercolors than you do with markers. Here you can see I'm adding a little detail with my Neocolor crayon. I often like to do this where I have the Neocolor crayons are just a very similar color to the marker, but maybe a little darker, just because I'm not, that way I'm not bringing a totally different color in, but it can kind of add a dimension to the piece. And here I'm showing how you can layer the markers right on top of each other, and then you end up with another color. So that's one way you can have more colors without bringing a lot of things with you on the trip, is that you can layer them and you end up with some additional colors.
Interesting. Do you also swatch your markers?
I tend to use like almost the same colors a lot of the time, so I don't swatch that often unless I'm using some colors that I am not used to. But it is fun. I love swatching things.
Oh, all right. This looks pretty fun to look at, especially like comparing it to the picture at the side. Well, the picture at the side is it's pretty beautiful. It's a wonderful place, like you mentioned, but you made it even more funky, and it has a playful side to it.
Yeah, I tried to just that's just kind of how I draw, so I've decided to just enjoy that and not worry about being realistic or being really accurate, because that's something it's just kind of fun to make playful drawings, and I think when other people see that too, I think it can be encouraging just to be like, yeah, any way that you can draw, just start drawing and it'll be fun. And I also, one thing it can be fun to do is if you want to do a travel sketchbook but you don't have any trips planned, is like I said before, you can draw from photos that you've already taken from trips. Or if you went on a trip and didn't take photos that you like, you can look for photos online or go on Google Maps and walk around the street view and recreate a trip that you already took or a trip that you would like to take. I did a lot of drawing over Zoom during the lockdowns of with friends over Zoom, and we drew Google Maps views on Map Crunch and just different photos and stuff. And it was a fun way to kind of travel from home.
Oh, that's nice. You did it with your friends. That's super lovely. It's like you guys are traveling together.
Yeah. Oh, and here you can see the Tombow markers have that other tip I was just drawing with. So they have the brush tip, and then on the other end, they have more like a mini liner tip if you want a finer line. The Eco Line pens don't have that. Although the one nice thing about the Ecoline pens is that you can refill them, which I like because it makes them more affordable and there's less waste.
Good point. Susan says, there's just a lovely comment in the chat. I think you might want to hear it. This drawing is making me feel happy just from looking at it. I know,
Oh,
right?
that's so nice. When people ask me like, "What's your goal with your art?" or whatever, I usually say like to make people happy. I just like to make drawings that make me smile and make other people smile.
Oh, well, I think it does bring out that vibe. And it's what Neil mentions, very children's bookish style. That's a good point. Do you do children's book? I think I've asked you before this, but
I don't, but a lot of the artists that I follow and that I'm friends with, like my best friend is Natalie Lundeen, who did an etcher a couple of years ago. She has a nice etcher class up. You can watch her mini workshop that was collage, and she's a children's book illustrator. And she's one of the people I was drawing over Zoom with that I was talking about doing map crunch and stuff. So my style is definitely very influenced by children's book illustrators, even though I don't do them.
oh, these are regular crayons.
It's a Neocolor crayon.
Oh, Neocolor.
Yeah, they're the water soluble crayons that you can sharpen. They are made by Caran d'Ache, same as the pencils that I'm using.
To anyone who's curious, I just dropped the link to the artists Melissa has been talking about. And if you missed a portion of these live, you can definitely just refresh this page after we end the broadcast so you can watch it all over again.
You can see over on that green building, I used the green pencil to add detail too, kind of like I did with the crayons, where it's like a similar color, but just darker. And now I'm trying to draw a different window style so that not all the windows are the same. I mean, they aren't really matching the picture at all at this point, but it's still fun.
Ooh, okay. We've got a couple of questions coming in.
Mhm.
Question from Casa. Okay, and I'll just mention the question. What brand of sketchbook do you use? Melissa's using Etcher sketchbook for this demo, but is there any preference for you, Melissa?
For this demo, I'm using the Etcher sketchbook and I'm using the B5 size, which I had never heard of that size before. And I think it's my new favorite size because it's like
Oh,
not too big, but not too small.
I know,
So I
right?
like, and the Etcher one is great, especially if you're using materials where you want to add water or if you use alcohol based markers that tend to bleed through pages. I also often use the Royal Talons sketchbook, which is kind of a smooth cream colored paper that's much thinner. That's the other one that I like, but um, there's a lot of great sketchbooks out there, but I have really been enjoying the Etcher ones. And here, oh, you can see I just blended the Neocolor crayon a little bit by going over it with the marker.
Ooh, interesting question. How do I select a mixed media color palette?
So the way that I selected this particular palette, like I mentioned at the beginning, is I just kind of picked out my favorite colors. And that's a good place to start. I recommend starting with just a few things of each material. So maybe like one or two markers, one or two colored pencils or neocolor crayons, or could also use oil pastels, but they're a little bit messier when you're on location. I'll talk more in the mini workshop about picking a palette for a particular trip or for a particular mood. But I think a great place to start is just with some of your very favorite colors. And a good tip that I learned from the illustrator I mentioned before, Emma Carlisle, is that you don't need to buy things in sets. That can be like, you'll often end up with just a lot of colors that you don't really want to use. So instead of buying a whole set of something, just buy like one pencil and see how you like it, and then like build it up from there.
Gotcha.
And like I mentioned before, you can also do something quite similar to this with watercolor instead of markers if you kind of want to start with what you already have and then just pick out a few other materials you have, like one other pencil or one other pastel, and just kind of start to build up from there.
Mm. So these are pencils again for details that you're using.
Mhm.
Speaking of pencils, Natalie's asking, do you have to sharpen your pencils a lot as you go?
I do sharpen them a lot, especially these luminance ones because they're quite soft. I go through
I
them
see.
very quickly. And here you can see again, I'm using the little like fine liner end of the Tombow to add some details. So if your pencil gets dull when you're on location and you forgot your sharpener, you can use the fine liners too. But I do try to always remember to pack a pencil sharpener with me and something to sharpen it into, like a little baggie or something. And I'll show in the mini workshop, I'll show exactly what I usually take with me on the trips, like which
Oh,
materials and how I pack them. I mean, it's not very elaborate, it's pretty simple, but I think that's one thing people always love to know is like what's in your bag, which I mean, I
mm,
can say now is pretty much what you've seen here, some markers, some colored pencils, some oil pastels, or also some Neocolor crayons, pencil sharpener, um, some water brushes, and that's pretty much it. Sometimes you might want to bring a hat, sunscreen, headphones if you're drawing in public and you kind of want to look like you don't want people to come up and talk to you.
how do you deal with that when someone just, you know, it's nearby and just gets curious about your work?
To be honest, I often try to draw in places where like no one can see me. like
I see, I
so
see.
Not always. I mean, sometimes if you're drawing in a cafe, someone might come by. It doesn't happen to me a ton, and I don't mind showing people my sketchbook. I don't. It doesn't bother me because usually people, it just makes them happy. But I often will
Yeah.
try to find like hidden away places to draw, especially if I'm trying to sketch people, because I'm like, what if they notice that I'm drawing them?
Oh,
Or
we get
sometimes
that.
I'll draw just in the car.
Oh, it's a whole place, and you've got like your coffee maybe.
yeah. I even draw in the car sometimes, obviously not when I'm driving, but if I'm a passenger and it's a fairly straight road, I like to draw in the car a lot on road trips and things like that. It can be a fun challenge to try to draw things as they like zoom by your windows. But I think if people want to get started drawing out on location, but you're worried about people coming up to you, just start in
Mhm.
like a quieter place where there's not too many people around, or go out early in the day when there's not so many people around, and you'll get more confident, I think. And also, you can start with something like this, just drawing buildings because they don't move around or change very much. It's a good way to start because drawing people or birds and things that change really quickly can be hard at first.
Yeah, very intimidating for some, and yeah, starting is just one way to do it. And I noticed you painted the skies a different color. Is that usually
Yeah.
your taste?
Well, so this is part of working with a limited palette. Like I don't have a light blue, so
I see.
I'll usually do it in a like a apricot or a pink, or sometimes I'll use this purpley blue I have, but it's quite a dark color, so it makes it feel more like later in the day. So since I'm going with more of like a happy, fun mood, I just painted in the sky with that. I think it's the apricot. And then I just like to go back in and add a few more fun details here and there. These are the
Mm.
kind of things if you're drawing on location and then whoever you're on a trip with is ready to like move on, you can add some of these little details later on too. You can always take a photo and finish up later.
We've got some reserved questions that we can talk about in a while.
Sure.
We're almost done, but if you guys have more questions, just drop them in the chat. Um, I've reserved some which I would want you to explain further, so
Yeah.
I'll have that explained or asked later. Love the color palette, says Paula. Aw.
Oh, thanks, Paula. And now for
Ooh.
the fun part, you get to pull the tape off. And I recommend pulling it off slower and more carefully than I am doing here because you can rip the paper. Oh, and if you're
Is
not
this
on location, you can use a hair dryer to kinda warm up the tape, and that will help it come off without pulling up the paper at all.
Do you use regular masking tape or
This is like an artist's masking tape, but you can use
uh
regular masking tape or washi tape works too. But yeah, just be careful because you can see I ripped the paper a little bit there.
Yeah. Alan says, describe the mini workshop, please. We will be doing that in a while. Thank you so much for asking. And this is such a lovely piece with
Thanks.
all them thumbnails together. Wow. Okay. I totally agree. It looks like a children's book-ish type.
Oh, and so this is what we'll be doing in the mini workshop, that other one that we saw.
Yep. Okay, I'll have to bring that up real quickly. Hold on. So sorry about that. And no, we can't bring it up. I'll just have to like fast forward that real quickly right here. Um,
I have
and
the
while we
sketchbook
do
with
that,
me too, so I can hold it up if you need. Oh yeah, there it
oh,
is.
okay, there you go. Yep. And let's see. So let's go with Alan first. Yeah, the 90-minute class that will be on May 22 at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. I'll be dropping the link in the chat for anyone who wants to check that out. You might want to sign up for that. And Swamp Meal says, very impressive. So the 90-minute class, it's a step-by-step tutorial where you learn these techniques. And don't worry, if you can't make it, the recording will be available a few days later. And all the details, like I said, is posted in the chat. Melissa, can you let us know again for the newcomers what you'll be doing in the 90-minute class?
Yeah, so we'll be drawing this illustration that you see here, which is across 2 sketchbook pages. So we'll talk about making these types of panels in your sketchbook, whether it's using tape or other methods if you don't have tape with you. And then we're going to be drawing from 5 reference photos. So we'll talk about drawing from reference photos that you took yourself, like even drawing things from bad photos and making them look cute. We'll talk more about limited palettes and picking them for a trip or for your favorite colors, and which materials you might want to take with you, what I pack with me when I go on a trip, how to decide what to put in all these little boxes. Like sometimes I'll just make up things that are in the little boxes on the side, like some of those palm trees I think I just invented to fill in the box.
Oh, really? That's super
Yeah.
cool.
And just those kinds of things, little techniques and where to get inspiration if you want to make a sketchbook but you aren't going on a trip, all that kind of stuff.
All right. We've got a question from Beth earlier. Where do you get your inspiration for people in your sketches? Because she was checking out your Instagram account.
Oh, so let's see. On my Instagram account, there's a mix. There's people that I've drawn from reference photos or from life. And then also, I do a lot of like cowboys that are kind of either from my imagination or I look at a few different photos of cowboys and then just kind of invent my own. So it's a mix of all different things like that.
Gotcha, gotcha. And what is the name of the square in Amsterdam?
Old Town
Um,
Square
Old Town Square. Gotcha. Thank you so much.
has a different name in
Clarice.
Czech, but I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, it's totally understandable. That's fine. And Clarice says, I'm going to use this mixed media style to illustrate my neighborhood. What can you say about that?
Ooh, that's exciting. Yeah, that's before I started taking sketchbooks with me on trips. That is one way that I started, was just going around my own neighborhood. Like I'm lucky enough to live by a national park, so I went there too. But I also like to take a sketchbook with me, even if I'm just going, say, to the grocery store, and then you can sit and draw for like 5 minutes before you go in. And that's a great way to warm up before a trip, or even to just explore where you live as if you were on a trip. And that's a fun way to get excited about where you live again.
That's interesting. And yeah, great tip. And Kelly is asking, oh, not asking, I'm sorry. Tip from Kelly. I usually stick the tape on my clothes before putting them on paper so that they don't stick too much. Do you do that?
I forget to do that. People tell me that all the time when they see me ripping my sketchbooks, but that's a really good tip. Just stick it to your clothes a few times so it's just not quite as sticky.
Oh, that's yep. Oh, I have it flashed right here. Clarice says panels are similar to storyboards. Love this for storytelling. I people are really going for this children bookish style. Who knows? Maybe Melissa would want to do like a children's book someday or her travel sketchbook adventures. I don't know. What do you guys think? Thanks. Fun stuff. Very different from my usual style, but I'll be trying it out. All
Yeah.
right, that's amazing. If you guys followed along today, you might want to show your work on our private Facebook group that is on um at your studio fam, which I'm flashing on the screen. So you might want to join us there. It's a private group, safe place, very amazing people community where you can have feedback, ask for feedback, and where all of our artworks are posted there. And also, we have, speaking of our private Facebook group, we have an upcoming open art studio this coming April 24th, 12 p.m. Eastern time. You might want to join our group there because the announcement will be posted there soon. So it's just a chill session, open for anyone who's interested to join, and you can turn on or off your camera. That's fine. If you want to try this out, this kind of art style, and you want to bring it there, so that's totally cool. We will be very curious to know. And if you'll be posting it on Instagram, you might want to tag Melissa Lakey on Instagram, melissa.lakey, and use the hashtag at your studio. Hey, let's see. I'm inspired for travel journaling. Oh, that's good to know, Judy. All right. Oh, an idea for Melissa. You could add glitter around the watercolor painting sketchbook. Have you tried glitters before?
I don't think I'd take glitter on a trip because I feel like then there would be glitter everywhere. But maybe on one of my sketchbooks that stays home, that could be fun.
Yeah, that's super cool. And yeah, that's pretty interesting then. And I wouldn't want to risk having glitters all over my body. I don't know. All over my clothes to begin with. All right, I'll just flash back the work that we did today. That's a very lovely piece. Um, okay, if you guys have more questions, just type them in the chat. We can accept like a few more questions. But I'll go ahead and wrap things up if you guys don't have any questions. I have just signed up for the course, says John. Thank
Yay.
you so much. Yay. All right, we'll be seeing you there then. This was so fun, and I love the idea to travel around your own neighborhood. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, yeah, we can definitely like I mentioned, if you missed some of the portions right here during the live, you can definitely replay this same link. So just refresh right after we end the broadcast. For the 90-minute class, you'll just be expounding on the things that you've learned today. And Melissa, you want to do the honors for that one last time?
Oh, the mini workshop?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, so we'll just be doing a travel sketchbook spread of some photos from a trip I took to Santa Barbara, California, and talking about making a spread that shows sort of your whole day, how to make little panels in your sketchbook, and how to use a limited palette, how to pick limited palettes, what to pack when you take a trip, and more. And I'll be sharing more of my travel sketchbooks. I'll flip through some of them at the beginning of the class too.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, and I think everyone enjoyed. So, all right, our time is up, but I do hope you enjoyed your time with Etcher Studio, Melissa, and thank you so much for your demonstration today. So we do these live demos a couple of times a week, so make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified which live courses will be coming next. And if you love what you have watched today, if you enjoyed following along, you might want to click the like button below and let us know what you think through our feedback survey, which I'm dropping in the chat. Um, oh, quick question. I think I can entertain this one. Donna says, how long did it take you to start painting loosely after you started painting? As a newbie, I tend to paint more realistic.
It's kind of a hard one to answer because I've been drawing and painting like almost my whole life. But I took kind of a long break in the middle, and I definitely did have a more realistic style up until maybe about a year and a half ago. And one of my
Yeah.
big influences, like I've mentioned her a bunch of times, is Emma Carlisle. How her style and her Patreon has helped me a lot in just loosening up and making new friends. And just doing a lot of drawing on location and drawing quickly and just practicing. That all helps you loosen up, I think.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much. Great advice. And I think that's a great tip for a beginner. And again, 90-minute Melissa's 90-minute class is available in our website on our website, I'm sorry. So you might want to check that out and just drop a bulk. I'll be dropping bulk links in the chat. And any final thoughts, Melissa, before we sadly have to close this session?
No, just thank you to everyone for coming, and I hope that this will get you excited to try out drawing even in your own style. Doesn't have to be wonky like this, but just to, like people said, explore your own neighborhood, do an imaginary trip, or get planning a trip and just be excited to draw and make more art.
All right, well, you caught my line there, so, yeah, you're definitely the host right here. So thank you so much, Melissa, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. You guys are pretty enthusiastic, and I hope you will be posting your works. We're curious to know what you did today. Thank you so much, and until next time, Melissa,
But make more art.
bye for now. Yeah, you definitely got that. Make more art, everybody. Bye for now.